Viewpoint, program of personalities, politicians, and perspectives. We have with us a perspective, a personality, and a politician today. First, kudos. Oh, by the way, this is Mrs. Busby to my right, sir.
Nice to meet you, sir.
Again, nice to meet you.
Kudos to our Lincoln regular basketball team. They keep on moving along. I thought it was particularly appropriate how they jumped out of the gate against Lamphere last week, and Lamphere was never in the ball game, even though they were on the court.
Oh, can I say something?
Well, wait a minute till I ask Jim. Jim, this half her? Okay, all right, yes. Mr. Ash says it's all right, yes.
My youngest, believe it or not, grandchild is a junior, and they wore flannel shirts and things to school that day because she said Lamphere thinks they're a bunch of hicks, so they wanted to prove that it was true.
Well, it worked out. That's the fun of those young kids at that age. They rose to the occasion and answered the apparent mantle that the Lamphere students had given us to wear, and did a very good job in answering that. Year in, year out, we put some pretty good teams on the hardwood there, and we've had a lot of success down to the year. It's a conundrum to me. We've been building with our youth football program, and they do a great job out there. Thanks to Eaton Industries, by the way, for how much they cooperate with that field and so forth. It's a feeder program like we've had down there for years. I remember going out to the rec years ago. These little rugrats were running around bouncing the ball, and the balls bounce higher than they are. That's a feeder system, and it certainly works with the basketball program. We're beginning to work with these young men on the football field. Feeder system hadn't quite come to fruition yet. We've got an awful nice young coach there, Mr. McDonald, and so we kind of wish those young men, they work real hard out there. Contact sport. Basketball has become a contact sport, by the way, in some areas.
Everything's a contact sport.
Yeah, I'm not going there.
Have you been to a soccer game?
Well.
Isn't that right, Jim? Boy, I tell you, those kids, they contact, don't they?
That's a fun thing to watch those little folks out there. And then, by the way, we've done a kudo for Dr. Drew Howder a long time ago with that soccer complex they have out there behind Walmart. You ever been out there, Chief?
I have seen that.
It's really neat when they have these big tournaments. Boy, they get kids from parents from all over, and it's a big deal. Now, anyway, today is how many days before the election, Mrs. Busby? We have
18 minus what's the date today?
It's 13 days. It was 2 weeks from last night.
You probably would know that, wouldn't you?
I would. It's been on a countdown since I made my announcement in April.
We've got a great guest with us this morning. Jay Leno said, not true today here in this studio or in Logan County. It's definitely not true in Logan County. But Jay Leno said if God wanted us to vote, he'd given us candidates. Well, we have candidates, and good candidates here.
We have.
We're fortunate here for the most part here in Lincoln, Logan County. The kind of candidates that step out and put themselves on the line to run for our various offices. Why don't you introduce our guest formally?
Speaking of candidates, yes. In fact, fresh from a debate.
Yes.
Last night we have Mike Geriets, and Mike is a policeman and has been for lots of years assistant chief here in Lincoln. And I would have come to your debate, but I had a 6-month-old, and I don't know if he's interested in politics.
Probably not yet.
But I'll try and bring him up right so that he's a good Logan County politics kid. Mike, how long have you been with the police force?
Well, I started in '89. I'm on my 25th year with the Lincoln Police Department, and prior to that I had about 5.5 years at Logan Correctional Center, so I was a correctional officer at the Illinois Department of Corrections before that.
Hardly a neophyte in law enforcement.
Pardon me?
Hardly a neophyte.
Right.
Yes.
We're glad to have you here.
Did you always intend to be a policeman? You know, some little boys are going to be a policeman, or they're going to be a fireman.
Right. You know what? I discussed this last night, but when I was in the 3rd grade, my dad, Kenneth Geriets, he was known all over Lincoln as String Bean on the CB radio, and that's when CBs were huge. They used to have a
CB radio.
They used to have a Logan County CB hotline club, and they'd provide some services to the community where they would put like a little white flag on their CB antenna, and on Halloween they would drive around and try to make sure all the youngsters aren't, lighting little trash bags on porches and knocking on doors and running or soaping windows. And I remember riding with my dad then, and it was kind of like, wow, I felt like, man, we're doing stuff like police. But I'm going to take it a step farther. He started testing when I was in the 3rd grade for the Illinois State Police, and they had a height weight requirement back then, which they no longer have. And my dad was, he was 6 foot 2 inches tall, and he was a little bit overweight. He was about 20 pounds overweight, so he started a regiment to lose weight to be accepted into the academy, and he became ill. And then he was later diagnosed with multiple sclerosis.
Oh, my.
And I remember being in 3rd grade and remember how devastated he was. And it really, I was thinking, you know what, from this is no kidding, from the 3rd grade on, I thought, I'm going to be a policeman because I'm going to show my dad that I can do something that he really wanted to do but was unable to. And from the 3rd grade on, I was the kid in the neighborhood riding the bicycle with a little playing cart attached to my spokes like a motorcycle.
Oh, yes.
And they could hear the siren coming out of my mouth for a block away. So I knew then I wanted to be a good guy.
When you were 8 years old.
Yes.
Interesting personal interest in that story. That's very, very interesting. How old was your father then when MS did
MS hit? I believe he was in his, I think he was around 31 years old, 30 to 31. He died my senior year of high school, and he was only 39 years old.
Oh, heck.
Yeah.
I thought I had lost my father at a tender age of 51. But boy, 39, that's really
awful young. And you know what's sad about it is when you're a child, and I was a senior in high school. You don't realize. I remember talking to people and saying, "Wow, he lived a good long life." I mean, to me, as a high school kid, 39 was old. Right. But I'm telling you what, when I turned 39, it was actually when I turned 40. I was in my doctor's office, said, I want a complete workup. I want blood. Put me on the treadmill.
Yeah. It had the tendency to get your attention. There's no question about that.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Well, when we turned 70, Bill and I thought that was pretty young. So it's all relative.
When I turned 70. Well, by the way, just to make sure that you're a bona fide candidate, you do have your birth certificate.
And, you know what? I do have my birth certificate, and I knew you were going to ask that, so I brought it with me today.
And we can prove that you are an American. All right.
Yeah. Lifelong Logan County resident.
Some people that isn't very important, apparently, but that's another story. That's at a different level. So, Mike, let's start right out. The big question of the day seems to be concealed carry, because that's just come to us now with all of these rulings and regulations and right to carry in the state of Illinois. What is your off-the-shoulder opinion about concealed carry, sir?
It's about time. I am a proponent of concealed carry. I believe that, we've been denied our Second Amendment right for years, and, obviously the Supreme Court agreed by kind of forcing Illinois into hand to say that you've got to do this, and there's many other states that have done it.
Like 49 others, I think.
Right, yeah, and you know what? I just saw on Facebook where one of our local attorneys who definitely does a lot of advertisement here at the radio station, Jim Grimaldi, received his in the mail.
Yeah.
And you know what? That's you could tell he was very proud about doing that, because he's put a lot of work into it.
And still does. He's continuing to do that.
I think the concern with us, and something that he mentioned was, comes with that card is great responsibility. And we know that criminals have already been carrying firearms and never had the lawful right to do so. Right. And they're going to continue to do that.
Laws aren't going to stop them from doing that. There's no question about that.
That's why I call them criminals, Bill.
Yeah.
Now law-abiding citizens who are trained, who are licensed, have the same right to carry those firearms it's not the law-abiding citizens that I'm worried about as a police officer, but the one thing that I will say is that just like anything else, I'm sure somebody's going to slip through the cracks and somebody's going to do something they shouldn't do.
Inevitable.
It is, and that's a concern of mine. But, you know, when you look at this training that they do, police are a little bit different. We train under high-risk situations. And there's more to carrying this weapon, being able to shoot a target. It's about being able to make a good decision under pressure. And that's what this conceal. Think about it. When these people are going to be forced, do I pull my gun? Do I shoot my gun? Me, I would never point my gun at somebody unless I had the lawful right that it's this close to taking their life. And I think that a lot of citizens, I'm hoping, will be able to have some training and take it beyond the licensing, because there's all kinds of schools out there providing tactics and things like that, put you in high-risk situations to where you get the adrenaline going, so you do make appropriate decisions. And if you train like that, it becomes second nature.
We have one of those right up here, right up the line here in Atlanta. We're going to have this young lady on, and perhaps Jim at the same time. I don't know how we're going to work that out. Pistol Prep Academy right here in Atlanta, which you're familiar with that, and it's apparently rather new to us here. They're going to build a firing range up here, I understand. But the key word is training and knowing how to act responsibly.
Correct.
Those are the things that said the two items: responsibility and training.
Yes. And, you know, we've taken it a step farther. We've already sent our police officers for the Lincoln Police Department, a number of them have went to some concealed carry classes to where we know what our enforcement rights are as far as that goes. The last thing we want to do is violate someone's civil rights who has a lawful right to carry. But just because they have a right to carry a gun doesn't mean that if we get called to a disturbance that we're not going to disarm them, that we're not going to ensure our safety while we're there. They're not going to get arrested for having it, but we still have officer safety concerns. So let's say, for instance, somebody has a lawful right to carry and we get called to a domestic dispute. You know, we don't want this guy walking around upset and mad carrying a gun. So we're going to do everything we can to safeguard our officers, because my number one concern is the safety of the public and the safety of the officers who are responding to those calls. They all have families, so we want to make sure that everybody's been to the latest training, the latest laws, so that they'll appropriately deal with whatever situation they come in when it deals with concealed carry.
I'm glad to hear you speak to this, because I'm on the other side of that fence.
You are?
Yep, I
well,
am.
Move over.
My brother and I don't bring that subject up because he's totally for it, and I worry so about people not being responsible on such a small issue, seemingly, as taking care of the darn thing and keeping it locked up, so that their 6-year-old doesn't shoot their 2-year-old.
Yes.
That's the kinds of things I worry about. And people go into a bar, and if they get in a tussle and poke one another in the nose, no harm, no foul, I guess. But if you pull out your gun and shoot somebody, that can be very seriously dead, you know?
Right. I think that the concealed carry, you know, they definitely instruct safety. Safety, safety, safety. And you also have to put into perspective that these people that have guns now at their home, just because they're not licensed and they're allowed to carry a gun doesn't mean they don't already have guns. That risk is already there for those children. It's going to take a responsible adult, and they teach that in those classes about keeping the gun safe. But those people who we're talking about, prior to having this licensing thing, most of these people already have firearms in their house. So hopefully by these classes and the licensing, this is it's a privilege set forth by the government for us to be able to have this concealed carry permit. That privilege can be taken away very easily. So the idea behind it is training, and hopefully these people will be responsible adults and not have that available to where the children can reach them and start playing with them.
Does the law dictate like a continuing ed program that people in various professions have, where you have to you have to go back for a class every year? Or
Well, I know
every
that the
other year?
license is only good for so long, but I'm going to tell you, when it comes to the legislation on this, and I've read some of this, there's a lot to it. And I honestly don't have the answer, like annual qualifications. We as police officers have to certify and have annual qualifications. Right. And I think these people here don't even have to qualify with the weapon they're carrying. I mean, if it was me, I'd say, I think you should have to qualify for whatever you're carrying. You should show that you're proficient for that particular weapon. But right now, I think the license allows you to carry certain caliber handguns or whatever.
I'll guarantee you, sir, that those who voted in favor of it, very few read the law in its entirety. They probably voted their heart or their emotions,
right,
without having read the law in its entirety. We had a lady out in Washington once tell us we had to pass something so we know what's in it.
Yes.
But this is Logan County, not national politics. 648-5510. Somebody might have a question or want to weigh in on this. Our guest this morning is Michael Geriets, as we all know, one of the two good candidates for sheriff of Logan County. It's nice to know in this race that Logan County will not be a loser.
Amen.
I've had a number of people say that, and you know what? I'm honored to be. I'm not a politician, but I'm sure learning about politics.
Man, no.
But I will tell you that I've had a number of comments from people saying the exact same thing, saying, I feel like no matter who wins, Logan County's winning. Mm-hmm. And I appreciate that, because often you see people running and you know one person you don't want, the other. There's a lot of people that were actually on the fence, and because of the fact that he's a proven leader, he's been there for 12 years. Mm-hmm. However, you got somebody coming up with fresh new ideas and also has the experience. I've been an administrator of a department managing a $1.8 million budget, for the past 6 years. I began my 7th year as deputy chief. And along with that, all the other administrative responsibilities going along with that. So I'm highly qualified for the position. Mm-hmm. So you have two highly qualified individuals vying for the same one. And it's an honor to be offering the citizens of Logan County a choice. It's the only contested race in Logan County.
Yeah,
so
that's amazing.
I'm honored to be a part of this, and I tell you, my children, they have been ecstatic being able to be a part of this campaign, from helping out at fundraisers to walking in my parades, and everybody's it's been a great family experience for all of us, and it's been very enjoyable. I admit there's a lot of stressful times. I think our current sheriff was just as stressed about last night as I was, and just as relieved when it got over with. And we discussed that, So I think we're very fortunate in Logan County. We do have two good qualified candidates. I just hope that when they go to the polls, they see a little edge on myself. So that's what we're hoping for.
Fairly stated and well stated. That's kind of a typical Americana type thing, It's just great to have two well-qualified persons. Notice I didn't say men, because I also remember that some of these women are well-qualified.
Some of these people in this room are women.
Oh, I remember that.
Be careful on that one.
You made a remark just before we went on the air that integrity is doing the right thing when nobody's looking.
Right.
And I totally agree. I think that's a beautiful way of stating it. Thank you for that.
You're welcome.
I'd like to ask you how you feel about a lot of young people today. I'm really putting myself in the old age bracket now, but some of these kids have no respect for all the people that we were taught to respect. The teacher, the policeman, your elders, all these people, they just have no respect. And I know you have worked within the police department to try to combat that attitude.
Right.
Can you address that a little, please?
Well, I think it starts young, and obviously children who are raised by parents who don't respect others, is obviously that trait's going to be passed down, and so it makes it very difficult to work with some of these people. But when we look at things like that, you try to do what you can, such as through the DARE program.
Yes.
And I'll give you an example of that. When I was working undercover narcotics with the Illinois State Police for 3 years, I would happen to be in another community making a drug purchase, and obviously we traded off agents. Logan County was my main area, so I made cases here, but we would bring other agents in who weren't known, and then I'd offer the same assistance for them. So I'm in this other community, and there was a guy I was buying drugs off of. I was in his apartment, and he had a 3-year-old beautiful little daughter standing in there, and he asked me what I wanted. I told him. He patted the little girl on the butt and said, "Go get daddy's dope." And the little girl ran into the kitchen. I watched this. She ran into the kitchen, pushed a chair up to the counter, opened up the cupboard, reached up high, pulled down this like cake tin, this Tupperware cake tin, and brings it down on the chair and runs it and hands it to daddy and goes, "Thanks, baby," and he pats her on the butt. She was so proud of helping her dad out, not knowing what's going on. But you know what? I'm looking at this going, how are we going to teach her? What chances does this girl have to resist drugs when she sees this as a normal part of everyday life? And I also had a child at that age, at that time, and it sickened me. It made me sick to my stomach to think about this. So this is one of the reasons that when I got out of narcotic work, I came back, I went right into the chief of police office, and I said, I want to start educating our children. I want to teach the DARE program. And the DARE program wasn't just saying no to drugs. It was telling them they have a choice. You know, just because mom and dad do it, or sister or brother does it, or your friends are trying to get the pressure on you to do it, doesn't mean you have to. You have a choice. And I love teaching that program. And I'm going to tell you, even recently, we have disclosures that come out from students, from small children about parents and stuff, and we end up, end up turning into a search warrant where we found drugs in the house. This child doesn't want them in there, and they know what mom and dad are doing isn't right, and it's a sad thing. But recently we've done a search warrant that resulted from that, but we had it from years ago when I was teaching the DARE program. So that was one aspect of it. It was never enough for me just to teach the grade school DARE. I went back for another certification to teach the high school DARE program. It's totally different than the grade school because the high school, you get into forming safe and healthy peer relationships, boyfriend-girlfriend relationships, how to recognize signs of unhealthy relationships such as abusive and controlling and telling you what to wear. And then it got into things of going to parties and how date rape can occur. So it was an array of topics that I believe was, it was received pretty well from the high school students because they can be a tough crowd. You know that, especially freshmen. And I taught it to every single freshman that came into health class for approximately 4 years through Miss Joe Viley's class. And it was phenomenal. And she loved it. She goes, "Mike, this is a phenomenal program, you know?"
Oh, yes. And you can't reach everybody, but if you got a couple % of those kids to recognize these kinds of things, that's a win-win.
Right.
And you know, we mentioned DARE. We dare not go any further at Viewpoint unless we give our commercial breaks right now.
Gotcha.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Ash. Go right ahead with the breaks. All right, we're back live in the studio here at Viewpoint program. Our guest this morning is the candidate for sheriff of Logan County, Mr. Michael Geriets. Glad to have you with us, young fella. Off air, we were talking about some of the problems way back when you were in school. Well, way back when I was in school, way. You mentioned the fact that we had more respect for our school administrators. And you can blame political correctness for that, my friend. We've just gone amok with political correctness in this country.
Right.
It just has almost destroyed the fiber of what we're really about here in America. You can't hardly wink at your grandmother without being politically incorrect, you know?
You now have children who are threatened to be disciplined or spanked by their parents will be the first ones to tell their parents, if you hit me, I'll have you arrested.
Or and, I'll hit you back.
Yeah, well, hopefully that's another issue, but I tell you what, parents do have a right to discipline. You know, you have a right to spank your child, but do you have a right to leave massive bruises? Do you have a right to use an extension cord, a belt? Absolutely not. But, you know, I remember growing up, one of the reasons I learned respect was because, I don't know if you guys remember the little wooden thing, and it was called Mom's Helping Hand. and it was a piece of wood that went from about just above your elbow, and it was a hand cut out. The idea behind this invention was that when Mom took a heavy pot of boiling water or something off the stove, she could use this mom's helping hand to put under it to help her hold it.
Okay.
That's not what it was used for in my house.
Oh, I see.
And I tell you what, I learned respect because that mom's helping hand definitely helped her out keeping me in line, and I feared that. And the same thing with schools today. I'm not saying to bring back corporal punishment and spank children, but I'm telling you what, I feared that. I remember being in junior high coming very close to a whooping by Mr. Williams while he was principal of that school, and I was terrified.
Yeah.
And I had heard those stories, and they don't do that today, and these kids know you can't touch them, and especially when they're being raised by parents who may not instill respect and things like that. And I think that's the change in society we're seeing today. But let's not get it confused. We have a number of great, great kids out there who are very respectful, who are interested in law enforcement and world government and want to make changes and volunteer and go to church. And, we have a great community in Logan County, and there's only a few that are probably having some behavioral issues.
Well, that's
Well, but
always
of course, that's who makes the news. Are they going to follow
Right.
any of us around and report on our day? I don't think so. It's
Right.
just not that exciting.
It's like a police officer. People remember you when you write them tickets or arrest them, but they don't remember the cop that gave them the break. It's the ones that...
Well, the business at hand. Candidate Geriets, if you were to be successful, would there be any changes that you see now that you would want to implement right away? I'll just leave the question there.
Sure.
Without-
Well, there's a number of things I'd like to see. We've noticed on our police department, we were having some workman's compensation issues with officers getting injured on the job from affecting an arrest, somebody who resists arrest. They ended up battling and getting hurt while trying to arrest somebody. And we're seeing more and more of that. We had 20,000 incidents on the Lincoln Police Department last year versus 10,000 incidents at the Logan County Sheriff's Department. We made 1,160 arrests on the Lincoln Police Department last year compared to about 600 of the Logan County Sheriff's Department. We're in the hub. We're in the main concentrated area. There's a number of bars. We do have some alcohol and drug issues with some of the people that we come in contact with. And the use of tasers have been unbelievable for our department, because I'm not saying that we tase everybody, because we don't, but the mere threat of that has gained compliance. We have seen a huge reduction in the number of officer injuries, no longer having to go hands-on where bones can get broke, teeth can get knocked out, tackling somebody getting hurt. It actually reduced the risk to the officer and the offender.
Right.
And because of this, these lower workman's compensation policies, because we've reduced this, they've turned that into money returned back to us that we use as part of the safety grant, and we have purchased ballistic vest equipment. There's been all kinds of things that we purchased for. We have a board, Mr. Tim Butterfield, an officer in our department. He is the school resource officer at Lincoln Community High School. He goes to these meetings and he takes polls of the department. What do you think we need? And they use this safety grant money to purchase this at no cost to the taxpayers. So number one, I think officer safety. You got a deputy out there whose backup is 15 minutes away. He ends up face off with a mental subject who isn't going to listen to talk, who isn't going to reason with you. Do you want him to be protected and knowing that he can down this guy without injuring himself, and there's no wrestling around when he's got a firearm and things like that? Tasers are huge in my book. I think that's the first thing, officer safety. We need to look at the high turnover rate on the Sheriff's Department. I believe that there needs to be a hiring practice where it's an oversight by a board or commission. Maybe some people from the outside. We have a police and fire commission that you end up getting some of the best candidates, people who will have tenure there, who's not going to come there just for police training and springboard off to another agency. We want people to stay there. The other thing is, I believe that in the 21st century, we need a 21st century police department, and that includes technology. The Sheriff's Department don't have a web page. They don't use Facebook. I'm telling you, these are things in today's technical society, you can reject it all you want, but it's there, and that's how people communicate. We have, when we developed a web page, we started getting emails from people with questions. They have, they can contact the different divisions of the department. Facebook, here's what we used to do. You used to get a picture of a burglary suspect from a surveillance camera. We would post it on the wall in the police squad room, have officers come in and look and say, do you know who this is? It may be up there for a month, no idea. When we implemented a Facebook page, guess what? We put that same picture up on Facebook. Within 30 minutes, we had at least 10 responses positively identifying that suspect.
See, that makes a heck of a difference.
You have to go with the flow and be innovative and be progressive and use these tools to our benefit. Doesn't mean you have to personally have a Facebook page, but our police department uses it. We used it when we got message out about Halloween being canceled because of the weather, and we had, we put out messages in regards to scams, about snowstorms, and about other things that could be of a public service announcement. They have the potential of reaching thousands within a few minutes. And people share it and become friends and on Facebook. So I think that's one of the things that, to be progressive with the police, with the Sheriff's Department is a must.
Good point.
That's very interesting. Go ahead, honey. Go right ahead.
How do you feel about the recent change in business in Colorado? Would you support or not like that to happen in Illinois?
I would be totally against the legalizing recreational use. Let's just go with the first things first. We already know that medical marijuana is something, it's here, it's going to happen, and so we have to deal with this. There is so much unknown. We don't even know how that's going to affect us. I've heard of other communities that, where maybe 30,000 people started off, where they had, when they kind of lightened up on the requirements, and for the illnesses that you could get it for, it skyrocketed to 125,000 people. And, if somebody legitimately needs it for their medical treatment, I totally understand that. And the legislature, obviously, they agree with it and say for those certain ailments, they should have the right to smoke it or whatever else. My worry is, look at what we already have in our community now. We have people who legally get prescription medication on a regular basis, and it's not for their legitimate use. They're selling it. We have had a number of cases where people are selling their prescription medications, their controlled substances. We recently worked with a drug enforcement agency. DEA came in and worked with our undercover narcotics guy, and they made a number of arrests of people who were actually doing that same thing. So is medical marijuana going to be that same thing? Another concern of mine is there's legislation already in the books, and they're trying to figure out, look at our DUI laws. They're going to have to revamp those because obviously marijuana stays in the system. The residual drug in the blood stays longer. So now you have to determine, when you stop this person, were they actually under the influence, or was this something, it was still in their system from a week ago? So we're going to see a number of court cases challenged. So I'm saying, let's worry about a little piece at a time, and let's deal with the medical marijuana first. We have sent officers to training recently about how to deal with medical marijuana, about about recognizing whether or not somebody is under the influence. But the problem is, there's not a breath test for that you can use out in the field. There's, they can look at the eyes, and they can do, like with alcohol, for instance, you can do horizontal gaze nystagmus, which is a involuntary movement of the eye, and you do an eye test, you'll see people with a thumb out in front moving it side to side, and if somebody's intoxicated, their eyes won't follow it smoothly. It will be a real jerky motion, and then when you hold it out at maximum deviation, their eye will sit there and twitch, and that's when somebody's under the influence of alcohol. As far as with something, as far as like marijuana, there's other things they can do, but they haven't really been upheld by any courts or been challenged as being an accurate way of making it probable cause to make the arrest. So it may be a flashlight in the eye, seeing how the pupil reacts to the, dilates or constricts, reacting to the light. There's just different things like that. So there's a number of challenges we have ahead that the only thing I can say is court cases are going to dictate how we react to these in the future. And But as far as recreational use, I don't see where, I don't think that would benefit our community, our children, and maybe that goes back to me with the DARE program. The bottom line is the children, it's been a proven fact, marijuana is a gateway drug to harder, more addicting substances. And so having said that, I would be against the recreational use of it. It's already happening now, right? It's not,
I think so.
I mean, it's already happening. So what I'm saying here isn't going to affect anybody out there who's probably maybe smoking a joint listening to us right now. I don't know. But it's not going to affect them because they're not going to abide by the law anyway.
Yeah,
so.
Exactly. But you mentioned an interesting thing to me, and I don't think that the average citizen in Lincoln realizes how much training is going on in our police force. Where do we send these folks, your officers, to be trained? Various universities and so forth?
Sure. We have, we're really fortunate because our city council, when they're setting forth the budgets, they recognize that, the two things that will get a department sued rather quickly is lack of supervision and lack of training. We have to keep our people trained. We are a member of what's called the Mobile Training Unit. It's out of Springfield. It's a law enforcement training advisory commission. They call it LETAC. We pay an annual fee, and they put on classes all the time, and we can send people to classes, and it's free when we send them. After the annual fee, I believe it's around $1,200 for a department our size. In addition to that, we'll send people to specialized classes that are more some of them could be longer. They could be $500-$600 a class, and we're lucky because we have these budgets where for training, where, like I said, the city council recognizes the need for training, and we constantly send people to training. Guys can get online, they can look, and they can pick and choose what classes they'd like to go to because they know where they need help. They say, I've had somebody come to me recently and said, Chief, I haven't been doing the advanced interview class, and I'd really like to do that. So I'm looking for an interview class for this guy, and if we have to send him down by St. Louis to do that, we're going to get it done because, having a well-rounded, trained department is essential in today's society, and it's training is at number one because, like I said, it does release civil liability on you. You want people to make good decisions, and you want them to have the best interview skills possible. So we always stay on top of the training. We try to make sure that everybody, plus there's annual certifications that we have to do, whether it's CPR, whether it's firing range and hazardous materials. A lot of that stuff is done online anymore.
And I'm sure it's safe to say that if you were elected Sheriff of Logan County, that would continue to be your philosophy insofar as your staff is concerned.
Right. My opponent had talked a lot about the training of the Adamax Training Academy down behind Memorial Park, and he's really been talking a lot about it. But the fact of the matter is that facility is a private business that has been allowed on the county property, and people will pay to go to those classes from all over. He says that his department has benefited from that. Personally, I don't know of any other agency in Logan County that utilizes it. We don't even use the firing range there anymore. It made it so difficult when they allowed this business down there to make arrangements to get down there. So we go out to Scott Mack's place out Fifth Street. That's the same place the State Police Tactical Unit goes. And but I know Mount Pulaski, Atlanta, nobody actually uses the facility, but people will pay. It's very expensive to send an officer there if it's not part of a mobile training unit class. It could be $350 per man, and with 25 people on my department, I can't afford to send everybody there for training. Sure. I have the utmost respect for Ron Yaner, who's down there teaching classes, but in my opinion, it's a private business allowed on county property, and it has not benefited the Lincoln Police Department, the Atlanta Police Department, or the Mount Pulaski Police Department.
Mike, when I was a little guy, I remember, real little guy a long time ago, they had a firing range in the basement of the courthouse.
Yes, yeah. We also had one down in City Hall, and thank God they've changed regulations for that because we would go down there shooting a 38 when we used to carry 357 Magnums, the old revolvers. And when I first hired on, we went down there in the basement behind City Hall, under City Hall, and they would shoot those 38 wad cutters, and it was nothing to be shooting. All of a sudden you felt bing, and you're like, it ricocheted off, and we're like, we're done with that. And I shot down there one time in my entire career, and they've since tore all that up. I don't even think it's down there anymore.
What's the weapon of choice as far as sidearms are concerned?
Well, currently we are carrying the Springfield Arms 40 caliber, and but I believe that we're looking at going into the Glocks here very shortly. A majority of police departments across the United States have gone to Glocks, and the same caliber 40, but I don't know. It's just really, it doesn't matter to me. I hope I never have to use a thing, except as long as I'm proficient with the weapon, I don't care what we carry.
Well, but you'd be safe using it because of all your training, and you
Sure.
certainly are advocating that for people with this concealed carry.
That's correct.
When you were in DOC, was that out at Logan?
Mm-hmm.
Was my son Greg in there
Yes.
at that time?
Yeah,
Is that right?
he and I worked together for quite a few years. I know Greg, yeah.
Well, he's made his way to Warden now.
Yes, yeah, he's on my Facebook and stuff,
Yeah.
and once in a while he'll send me a message, and he's done very well for himself, and he was there. I think he started in the class before I did. I was hired in January of '84, and I'm thinking he may have hired in '83. I'm not sure about that.
He's got his ears in, and he's thinking of hanging it up, and I think, my gosh, he's awfully young for that.
Yeah.
But that's the way it is. He's maxed out here as far as pension's concerned.
He's done well, and 5.5 years there. Once again, my goal in life was to be a police officer, not to be a correctional officer.
Mm-hmm.
And what's sad about some of those places out there like Logan was that the officers actually locked up more during that 8 hours than the inmates are, because the officer is stuck on a housing unit or in a tower or at a gate. Yeah. And he's stuck there except for 30 minutes a day when he gets to go eat lunch.
The expression says boring.
Yeah, where the inmates serving time, they're going to school, they're going to program center, they're going to voc school, they're going to the library, they're going to the medical unit, they're going to leisure time services, and so I'm like, something doesn't seem right about this. I'm on this housing unit more than this inmate. But since then, I'm so glad to be out of there, too, because, recently they went to an all-female facility. After they closed the white, all the females are now at Logan Correctional Center.
Well, that's to combat overcrowding.
Yes.
That's another story. That's another 45 minutes.
Right.
Mike Geriets, we candidate for Logan County Sheriff. We appreciate your presence this morning, young fella.
Thank you.
The county will be served well, no matter what the outcome of the election will be. It's nice to have good, qualified candidates. I always try to close up. Did you have one thing that you want to close with, Mike?
I really do. I just like to say that, I know that there's been a lot about endorsements, and a lot of this is politics, obviously. And, my endorsements are not from sheriffs from other counties or from politicians who work in Washington, D.C. My endorsements are from community leaders right here in our area. You have the three largest communities being Mount Pulaski, Lincoln, and Atlanta. Mm-hmm. All three mayors, Lincoln Mayor Keith Snyder, Jim Fuhrer of Mount Pulaski, along with Fred Fincham of Atlanta, they have endorsed my candidacy. Along with that are the three chiefs of police, who are Ken Greenslate in Lincoln, you have Lynn Freer in Mount Pulaski, and then you have Jim Penny in Atlanta. These community leaders who we've entrusted into this position, in the positions they currently hold, recognize a serious need for change from our current Sheriff's Department administration. And I think it's important for the voters to realize, look at my endorsements. They're from local community leaders who recognize the need for a change. They're not from people who don't vote in this county. So I appreciate everybody's support. The people who've walked in parades, made contributions, allowed me to put signs in their yard. And I got to tell you, the support's been overwhelming. I really, really hope you get out there and exercise your right to vote on March 18th, the Tuesday primary, and hopefully after that date we can concentrate on there being a new sheriff of the county, but we'll see what happens. You do have two qualified candidates, and I thank God that I was able to offer the citizens of this county a choice in this election. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. I enjoyed this.
Well, we enjoyed having you. It's always nice to have a guest who doesn't leave you hang out there. He's got something to say, and then you're not reaching down there and stretching for. We always try
At least you're not like the moderator last night that they were threatening, we'll just turn your mic off.
We always try to sum up the day with a quote that's appropriate. Now, happily, this isn't the case in Logan County, and I say that, emphasize happily, but it's been said that, why pay money to have your family tree traced? Go into politics, and your opponents are going to do it for you.
That's right.
Thank you for Viewpoint.
Thank you.
Thank you.